We're back here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, and if you are just joining the show right now, we previously talked about Aaron Glenn and his introductory press conference with the New York Jets yesterday. But now moving on to our new segment here, we have to talk a little bit more about the Dallas Cowboys, and not really on anything regarding them directly, but with Michael Irvin, a guy that's very involved with the Dallas Cowboys, a guy that's very vocal about it, very passionate, to say the least, about his Dallas Cowboys. And he was there for some of their more prosperous years. So you would understand that point. And I know Cowboys fans get pretty down about this team, especially recently. But Michael Irvin really always seems to be the most loyal, the most optimistic fan. Delusional optimism could be something that could be described as what like Michael Irvin acts like with this team. But I have really never seen him kind of like this. And it was a story, a report that really intrigued me because I thought when I looked at it, all right, how bad could this be, right? Because I know what Irving has said before about the Cowboys, and he always remains with a pretty optimistic view on it, as he usually does. But it felt like it really boiled over on Saturday when they announced, Brian Schottenheimer as their new head coach, and, he had his press conference yesterday, but it was Saturday when Irving went on his YouTube channel and just really let everybody know how he was truly feeling about this new head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And I have actually some of the things that he said on here. After we remove Aaron Glenn, we can go over to Michael Irvin, and this is some of the things that Michael Irvin said on the coaching hire for the Cowboys. The first thing he said was, "Here's my issue. We lost an opportunity here. I don't know what will happen with Coach Schottenheimer and the Dallas Cowboys, but Jerry's a shrewd businessman. And this opportunity, I'm shocked he did not see." And you initially think that he's talking about, the opportunity of hiring a guy like Deion Sanders and really being in this point where you could bring in someone to really shake things up. And that's where my mindset initially was when I saw that Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys were going to part ways, right? I just felt like it was time, like it was too much of the same thing. They would have been fine bringing back the exact same group of personnel that got them to a 7-10 record, and they were going to be okay with that. So I just felt like it was time anyway just for them to just go their separate ways. It was going to be more of the same thing, like, is this season more Mike McCarthy or Jerry Jones for how potentially bad it's going? Or should they have brought in a new head coach? Would Deion have been more successful with this team? You could already see the headlines right next season if they would have kept McCarthy. So I thought they move on from him. Yeah, bringing in Kellen Moore is not too far away from what you're used to, but at least it's something else with bringing in a guy from Philadelphia, in his time there this year. You make them worse as well by taking away their offensive coordinator. So I thought they were going to go down that route. But unfortunately, and I'm speaking from my personal feelings, they just played it safe and went with Brian Schottenheimer. And Michael Irvin makes a good point. You don't really know what, this whole thing could be. I think everyone's being, including myself, pretty judgmental and just pretty harsh on Brian Schottenheimer, like he's some bum that doesn't deserve a head coaching opportunity. He's been very heavily involved in coaching and being an assistant coach and everything like that. So no one's really doubting his ability or anything like that. I just think for the context of the situation that the Eagles should have not the Eagles, the Cowboys should have pivoted in a different direction, right? With the amount of attention they get and the problems that have been haunting them for the last 30 years now, right? It felt like they needed some sort of wake-up call, and it seems like Michael Irvin was saying the same thing. But that's not all he said. He said the next statement, which even rings a little bit more serious and a little bit more true, when he was talking about the NFC East and the NFC Championship, obviously having the Eagles and the Commanders in it, right? The Commanders making it back to a conference championship game before the Dallas Cowboys. And Michael Irvin said, "We have two NFC East teams in the NFC Championship game being played. All eyes on them. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. our enemies on all fronts, and they're in a position that we haven't held in 30, years. So pretty upset about it. And, he went on to say a bit more that I just kind of summarized here with these bullet points. He also said that he pointed out that they might start losing fans because nothing has changed over the last 30 years. They needed someone to come in and shake things up, like I said before. Also, he mentioned how in this time where the Cowboys really just have been, I guess, kind of irrelevant to an extent in terms of producing on the field, there's been the Chiefs dynasty, the Patriots dynasty, and a lot of people, in his words, said that could look at that dynasty and could look at that domination from the Chiefs and think maybe this is America's team, right? And he was talking about, I think, just kind of in a hyperbole sort of sense, how that they were going to lose the America's team sort of moniker, right, if they kept performing like this. And I thought that part was pretty funny. But he also mentioned how he still wants Deion to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, but really he extended on that point and said that he would have preferred that they brought in someone with some previous head coaching experience. And he mentioned Pete Carroll going over to Las Vegas, and I'm sure he would have been happy with Pete Carroll, although he didn't say that. It felt like, he was kind of, inclining that, right, with mentioning Pete Carroll there. And Brian Schottenheimer obviously has never really been a head coach. He has really just been as an assistant coach all throughout his career. So this is his first opportunity, and again, you don't want to just shoot him down before giving him a fair chance at it. But it just feels like this context, this scenario with the Cowboys was just a little bit bigger for someone to just have their first head coaching opportunity, right? Like, all honesty, like, for anybody to have their first head coaching opportunity, I don't think it would have been very beneficial in Dallas at all, to be frank, right? Because whether it been, Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, Brian Schottenheimer now, I don't think any of them would have really excelled as a first-time head coach in Dallas for obvious reasons that everyone's already said before, like the fact that Jerry is and has the final say on everything, that he's constantly, looking over your shoulder, and everybody knows that, he's the one that kind of runs everything around there. Not that head coaches elsewhere have maximum power over everything that goes on in the organization, but they have a lot of power in terms of, personnel, roster decisions, and, the whole thing in terms of, a level just below the owner and things like that, right? Some head coaches in certain places have that sort of leverage, and in Dallas, they have even less than what the average is around the entire NFL, right? Because everything just runs through Jerry Jones, and he would just like to have everything his way. So in this scenario, I don't think being a first-time head coach would have been very beneficial in Dallas, right? And I guess Michael Irvin was also saying that when he mentioned, having an experienced head coach, but I don't think that would have gone over well with a guy like Jerry Jones, unless, of course, he's had previous relationships with them as a former coach. They just brought back Matt Eberflus, right? And he was a linebacker coach there, and he was the passing game coordinator there as well, like almost 10 years ago. So that's a guy that, fits the criteria of being hired by the Cowboys, right? Having that familiarity. Jerry thinks you're good to come in. He knows you. You can come in and you're invited to the party, right? That's the sort of situation that they're running in Dallas. And again, now you start thinking, you kind of get into this spot where, all right, well, the head coach isn't necessarily who we wanted to. And then I started thinking, like, would any head coach, come in and would have fixed this team automatically? And I mean, I don't know. I highly doubt it. And I think that's also the ironic part about it. And honestly, what kind of fits and sides with Jerry Jones is that he could have hired anybody, right? And if he would have brought in Deion, I don't think this roster would have been that much better off just with a different coach to compete with, say, the Eagles or the Commanders or the Lions and teams like that. I think this roster still has a a lot of holes that need to be plugged. And with whoever was coaching them, I thought it was still going to be an extremely tough thing to just kind of turn around from one year to the next. Although, Michael Parsons said that they were, just very close. He felt that this team was very close. It definitely doesn't look like that, especially because it feels like I'm living the exact same thing that I was living a year ago, right? When Jerry Jones said that this team was going to be all in and they were returning the exact same team, if not worse, after losing a bunch of guys. It feels like I'm just rewatching that same exact movie now in 2025. And it just feels like, again, that they're running in circles because they're very uncomfortable, or I guess I should say Jerry is very uncomfortable with change, right? Change and the shifting of power balance is not something that he's particularly interested in. So we find ourselves here, right, with Michael Irvin going off on his YouTube channel, and I'm sure a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans sharing that same sentiment. And it is a pretty dire situation, I guess, because, the roster might need a lot of help, and the head coach isn't the guy that you thought should be coming in. But, a lot of the times, the Cowboys surprise us with things that they say, they do, that really we can't really explain, all in all, to be fair. But maybe now in situations like this where it seems like they're making all the right choices, maybe it works the opposite way. And maybe something will stick to the wall, right? For as many times as they've tried, something has to eventually stick, you'd hope for this team, for this franchise, and for those poor fans out there as well. But, it's still a long process. We're still in the early portion of it, so we'll see where this goes from here. But where the show is going is into another quick break. But when we return, we're going to talk about last week, not this past weekend, the weekend before that, the divisional round where particularly the Texans played the Kansas City Chiefs, and there was that controversial slide by Patrick Mahomes that drew a lot of debate on unnecessary roughness calls on quarterbacks and things like that. So we're going to talk about replay assistant that has been integrated into the NFL much more this year, and potentially including quarterback slides in as potential reviews for the upcoming season. When we return, we're going to talk about that and give our thoughts on it, and also give some suggestions on some rule changes when it comes to quarterback slides. So all of that is coming up right after this.
Look